Hello there. Welcome to Just the Dis. We talk about Blu-rays here and 4Ks, and today we're talking Kino and a group of disparate releases from Kino. And I will start with a lovely 4K of Fred Zinnemann's 1952 film High Noon, starring Gary Cooper and Grace Kelly and quite a few other interesting folks. I like High Noon. I think it's a good, solid Western, but I like it even more for the reason that it spawned its very existence, and it's I think part of it winning Academy Awards spawned the creation of probably my favorite Western of all time, which is Rio Bravo, because both John Wayne and Howard Hawks were not fans of High Noon, and Wayne was even offered, I guess, the lead role and called the film un-American, and Hawks took issue with it because he felt it sort of betrayed the standards of the Western genre, and I just love that this movie caused another movie that I love. So anyway, this is a lovely 4K, brand new HDR Dolby Vision master from a 4K scanner, the original 35mm original camera negative, and of course Gary Cooper stars, and he won the Oscar for Best Actor in this classic tale of an aging lawman who stands alone to defend a town of righteous cowards in one of the great showdowns in the history of cinema. The movie also marks the first role for a beautiful young actress who went on to become one of Hollywood's most beloved icons, Grace Kelly. I'd forgotten this was her first movie. Produced by Stanley Kramer, directed by Fred Zinnemann, and written for the screen by Carl Foreman, who would go on to write Bridge on the River Kwai. High Noon garnered a total of 4 Academy Awards, including Best Score for Dmitri Tiomkin. I love that Hawks used Dmitri Tiomkin for Rio Bravo as well. Very funny. And now stands high as one of the most cherished and influential films of all time. Western favorites Thomas Mitchell, Lloyd Bridges, Katie Jurado, Otto Kruger, Lon Chaney Jr., and Harry Morgan, as well as Jack Elam and Lee Van Cleef, round out a rousing cast. I can't remember if this is Van Cleef's first movie, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't have any dialogue at all in the film, and he's just there to look menacing, which he does. But it's a really great cast, and it is a movie that, is one of the first to do sort of a real-time countdown where you have Gary Cooper and his Quaker wife, played by Grace Kelly, getting the news at the beginning of the film that a certain outlaw is getting out of, he's been pardoned, and he's getting out of jail, and he's coming to get, basically come and get Gary Cooper's character. And from then on, we sort of get a lot of shots of clocks, and the film runs kind of in real time as Cooper scrambles around town trying to gather a posse to help him take on this dude. And I think that's part of what Hawks didn't like, was this idea of a sheriff needing help, and in his Westerns, sheriffs don't need anything but help. They're really reluctant to take help. But anyway, a great Western nonetheless, and this 4K looks absolutely gorgeous. It has a sort of an alternative artwork wrap, and it includes 2 commentary tracks. One from author, film historian Alan K. Rode, who I'm a big fan of. He does a lot of great noir commentaries. He's really good here. He gives a great production history, even as far as going into Gary Cooper's, personal injury history, and he threw out his back lifting Grace Kelly in this scene, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's really great stuff there. And then an audio commentary by film historian and writer Julie Kirgo as well, who I'm a huge fan of. She, of course, did a ton of commentaries for the Twilight Time discs. It also has a making of and 5 more featurettes in addition to that. So a really great release that even if you got the olive edition, this is a great upgrade of that. So high recommend for High Noon. And then a little more briefly, because I haven't had a chance to check this one out, we have Andrei Tarkovsky's Nostalgia. Now, Tarkovsky, famous for films like Andrei Rublev and Solaris and Stalker, I think all of which have Criterion releases. In addition to that, Mirror and The Sacrifice, a great artistic Soviet filmmaker and somebody who really made memorable films. Now, this one I am not as familiar with. It's from 1983, so it's a little later. And it says the Russian poet Andrei Gorchakov, accompanied by guide and translator Eugenia, is traveling through Italy researching the life of an 18th century Russian composer. In an ancient spa town, he meets the lunatic Domenico, who years earlier had imprisoned his own family in his house for 7 years to save them from the evils of the world. Seeing some deep truth in Domenico's act, Andrei becomes drawn to him in a series of dreams. The poet's nostalgia for his homeland and his longing for his wife, his ambivalent feelings for Eugenia and Italy, and his sense of kinship with Domenico become intertwined. I mean, you've got me there with Tarkovsky illustrating dreams. I think that's one of my favorite things for a filmmaker to take on, But this is a film that's certainly widely seen by a lot of people, at least according to Letterboxd. Just one I hadn't gotten around to. I did get a chance to just look at it, and it looks gorgeous, of course. This is... I'm trying to see if there's anything about... Andrei Tarkovsky explained that in Russian, the word nostalgia conveys the love for your homeland and the melancholy that arises from being far away. The debilitating form of homesickness is embodied in the film by Andrei, a Russian intellectual doing research in Italy. Newly restored in 4K from the original camera negative, Nostalgia is a mystical and mysterious collision of East meets West, shot it with the tactile beauty that only Tarkovsky can provide. As Jay Hoburn wrote, Nostalgia is not so much a movie as a place to inhabit for 2 hours. I like that. The restoration was carried out in 2022 by Centro Sperimentale de Cinematografia Cinecittà Nazionale, starting from the film and soundtrack negatives made available by Rai Cinema Spa. Film's director of photography, Giuseppe Lanzi, supervised the color correction work. Okay, so this is a 2-disc set. It has a... Well, actually, wait a minute. I think it's actually a... Is it a... No, it's a two disc. So you have a Blu-ray and a 4K. The 4K includes a commentary from film historian Daniel Bird, who's a commentator I definitely enjoy. And the Blu-ray includes a new interview with director of photography Giuseppe Lanzi, re-release trailer, Voyage in Time, 1983 behind-the-scenes documentary on the pre-production of the film. So you get a little extra something there. This is a Region A Blu-ray, obviously 4K, all region. But very excited to dig into that one. A nice, cool art house 4K release. Okay, a big left turn here. Let's talk about Fletch. Okay, so Fletch, a much beloved 1985 Chevy Chase comedy. Some would say, maybe his greatest role. And I'd be inclined to agree, because I feel like Chevy Chase's own personal inclinations for comedy and just dealing with people and speaking and being irreverent seem to really align well with this character, although I don't know that it's 100% accurate to the books. They're based on the character's based on a series of books. But of course, this is a big favorite for a lot of people, and this is a brand new scan, brand new HD mashup from a 2K scan of the 35 interpositive. And it's, a wonderful mystery story with Fletch, Erwin Fletcher, being a reporter for Los Angeles Times, I think, and sort of hanging out as a junkie on the beaches to try to get a drug story that turns into something else when he's approached by a character played by Tim Matheson, who wants him to kill him because he claims to have this bone cancer that will kill him, and it will help him insurance-wise and stuff. Anyway, fascinating film, very funny, and Chevy Chase was allowed to improvise in certain scenes. It's directed by the great Michael Ritchie, who, of course, was a comedic giant of the 1970s, but just a filmmaking giant of the 1970s ultimately. I mean, he did The Bad News Bears, he did The Candidate, he did Prime Cut, Downhill Racer, Smile, and then, of course, in the 80s, he would do Fletch, The Golden Child, Wildcats, things of that nature. Diggstown, I'm a big fan of Diggstown. Semi-Tough is one of his other 70s films, and he's really something. I'm a really big fan of a lot of his films. I think The Bad News Bears is one of the great sports films ever. But I love that he worked with Chevy and apparently was able to sort of rein him in enough to do it his way on the first take and then allow Chevy to do his thing on the following takes. And I think the result is a very good movie, a very enjoyable and rewatchable comedy with Chevy Chase taking on all kinds of personas and disguises, and it is just a blast. And it's nice to see it get a new scan for fans of the film. Now, this disc is pretty nice in that it includes a really good audio commentary by entertainment journalists and authors Brian Reisman and Max Avery. They are wonderful together, and they've done many commentaries. But what I do like is that, we'll talk about Fletch Lives in a second, the commentaries are kind of interconnected, and they mention things that they will talk about in the Fletch Lives commentary, and I listened to this one and part of the Fletch Lives, and it's a great companion to each other. But there's lots of great tidbits about all aspects of production and the actors and stories. They've really done a great deal of research, and it's a quite informative track. And I love the way that they're almost kind of telling each other stories about the movie, little things they discovered in their research, and it's a really great conversational track that I very much enjoy. Just Charge It to the Underhills, the Making and Remembering Fletch featurette is an old one, I believe, from a DVD, because the producer of the DVD incorporates himself into the making of, and even he's funny. He's a funny guy, and he interviews almost everybody, all the major players except Chevy Chase. He makes a claim that he forgot. I'm assuming Chevy Chase just declined to be involved, but it is a great look back on the film. He's talking to the producers, almost all the major cast, I think except Gina Davis, and they all have interesting recollections of the film, and I very much enjoyed it. It's about 26 minutes. From John Cocktoaston to Harry S. Truman, the Disguises featurette, they talk to the costume people and makeup people and go through some of his disguises, and he has many in this film. Favorite Fletch Moments featurette, and these are about 3 or 4 minutes each, and that's just going through some, fun moments, a lot of them having to do with the disguises. And then there's a Chevy Chase Reba Merrill profile, about a 3-minute press interview from the time, which is actually, he's got a bit of humility in the interview, and it's a neat little tidbit. Really, really enjoyable 80s comedy. You know it, you love it. This is a great upgrade. Looks nice. So Fletch Lives. This one comes out 4 years later. A little bit more problematic than the original Fletch. Some of it having to do with Southern plantation stuff, jokes involving Song of the South, and some other things. It's still funny. Cleavon Little plays a gentleman who works on the plantation, but there's more to his character that comes out, which I find fascinating. But Fletch is back to his old tricks, lots of disguises. There's a evangelist minister played by Arlie Ermey that's involved in a certain mystery, and a mystery surrounding his estate, which they're pressing hard to try to purchase it from him. He basically quits his job at the beginning of the movie when he finds out he inherits this estate, and moves down south. It gets into this mystery stuff, disguise stuff. Is it as good as the first film? No, it's not, but it has moments that I think are pretty funny still. And, the commentary is very enlightening. You find out some of the reasons maybe this film suffers a little bit. One of which was, I believe it's a writer's strike that they were in the midst of, and so they were stuck. Michael Ritchie returns to direct this one, and they were stuck with the first draft, I want to say. So Chevy Chase was forced to not forced. I think he enjoyed improvising, but he did improvise to sort of fill it out and make it feel more like a Fletch movie. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not going to live up to the first film, but I do like they released both, and I do like that the commentaries interconnect. And again, great research, great little bits coming out about all aspects of the production, and so enjoyable stuff there. This has a Fletch Lives making of featurette, which is, the press featurette, about 6 minutes from the time, and a Chevy Chase profile and a Julianne Phillips profile. She's sort of the love interest in the film in this one. And those are, of the time press interviews, short interviews as well. But this is also a brand new 2K scan of both of these are 2K scans of the 35mm interpositive. So the films do look better than they have in the past, and I appreciate that. Now, very exciting this month. I won't be able to talk about the third film, but filmmaker Nancy Savoca getting a really nice representation on Blu-ray this month with 2 from Kino. We'll start with her feature film debut, True Love, and then we'll talk about Household Saints. True Love, for those that don't know, was, I guess, a 1989 Sundance Grand Jury Prize winner, and it helped jumpstart the indie movement. This is even before Reservoir Dogs and before some of that stuff that was happening in the early 90s. So she's kind of at the very forefront of that. And it's a seminal work of Italian-American cinema, a humorous yet unflinching look at the realities of love and marriage. It follows Michael, that's Ron Eldard, who was later in Black Hawk Down, and Donna, Annabella Sciorra, who was on The Sopranos and is in tons of movies in the 90s. It was really one of my favorites in the 90s, actually. A young couple preparing for their wedding in an Italian enclave in the Bronx, and through revealing moments in dive bars, pizzerias, and living rooms, the film offers a nuanced meditation on marriage in a world heavily driven by gender norms. Yeah, it's a really great look at a sort of a cultural take on this Italian neighborhood and how they feel about marriage and this couple and the conflicts they get into, like some things that they do that irritate each other. She asks to hang out with him after his bachelor party on the night of that. That doesn't go well. And he asks to go out for drinks with his buddies on their wedding night. Also doesn't go well. So it's a very sort of conflicted, dramatic, it starts out as a light sort of look at all the aspects that go into a wedding, all the choices that need to be made, all the money that needs to be spent. Even in a reserved setting, it's still a lot, and it just comes down to, like, are they both ready for this or are they not? It's well acted on all fronts. It's got a great supporting cast. There's another Sopranos actor involved, and I'm blanking on which one he is. But this is written by Nancy Savoca and Richard Guay, and produced by Richard and directed by Nancy, and has a good soundtrack too. She's got a good sense for her soundtrack. A nice compliment to Dogfight, which is the other movie that I don't have and may not get to get a chance to review, but I'm very excited about. That's her studio film that follows these 2 films. She goes this one, then Dogfight, and then Household Saints. So, but Dogfight's coming from Criterion at the end of the month. Very just excited to see Nancy Savoca get this kind of representation on home video when she has not had it to this point. So this includes a commentary from Nancy Savoca and Richard Guy, interviews with music supervisor Jeffrey Kimball, production designer Lester Cohen, sound editor Tim Squires, editor John Tintori, and script supervisor Mary Cebulski. So a nice package for this movie, getting commentary and some interviews with the supporting below the line folks. But really neat movie, and I can see why it caught on. It's right around the time of when She's Gotta Have It's a few years before, but it's just on the cusp of that indie boom of the 90s, and that's fascinating to me. So she does that. She gets Dogfight, which is a great story. There's a cool interview out there now on the IndieWire Filmmaker Toolkit podcast where they talk to her about that film and what the original script was and how they made their changes. And anyway, so coming in 1990, so I want to say that's 91, that's Dogfight. And then in 93, she does this very personal film. This is a Milestone Cinema Kino release, Household Saints. Nancy Savoca's star-studded indie gem Household Saints is a chronicle of the spirited Italian-American New York family. Again, very focused on that Italian-American New York experience that perfectly balances humor, tragedy, and pathos. Joseph Santangelo, Vincent D'Onofrio, is a butcher with a wicked sense of humor who, quote, wins his wife, Catherine, that's played by Tracy Ullman, in a pinochle game over the protests of his mother, Judith Molina, who talks to ghosts and makes deals with saints. Joseph marries Catherine. When the old lady dies, her spirit is channeled into her granddaughter, Teresa, who yearns to serve God, perfectly embodying a modern-day Bernadette. Lily Taylor imbues Teresa with a mix of dedicated innocence and naivete. Executive produced by Jonathan Demme, with the memorable performances from Michael Imperioli, another Sopranos connection, Michael Rispoli, and Victor Argo. Household Saints showcases a unique voice in the 1990s independent filmmaking. It has been digitally mastered, restored, and remastered by Lightbox Film Center at University of the Arts, Philadelphia, in collaboration with Milestone Films, with support from Ron and Suzanne Naples, restoration supervisor, etc., etc. So this one I hadn't seen. I actually hadn't seen True Love either, and I very much enjoyed checking these both out. I'd known about the films, but because they hadn't had Blu-rays and their online streamability was a little weak, and I don't know how streaming these are now. I'm pretty sure True Love isn't streaming. This may have been. But it was neat to finally see them in nice formats after having been such a fan of Dogfight for so long. And of course, Nancy Savoca worked with Lily Taylor in Dogfight, and then she works with her again here, and it's a great showcase for Lily Taylor. This disc includes some cool stuff. It includes at least two short student films from Nancy Savoca. We have Renata from 1982, and we have Bad Timing from 1983. So two of her short student films, which is awesome. The Many Miracles of Household Saints, a 2023 making of documentary by Martina Savoca Guy. Archival interviews with Jonathan Demme, Vincent D'Onofrio, Tracy Ullman, Lily Taylor, Nancy Savoca, Richard Guy, Judith Molina, Peter Newman. New interview with Nancy Savoca and Lily Taylor by Richard Guy. That's a separate thing. So you got a lot of nice features here. This is an all-region disc. And yeah, like I said, just underrated movie. In the midst of that 90s boom, we've seen a lot of that stuff come out on Blu-ray. A lot of it is talked about, but Nancy Savoca's sort of been left behind a little bit, and that's unjust in that she's a great filmmaker, incredibly talented, and a great voice in terms of she wrote the screenplay again with Richard Guy and directed herself, and Guy produced. This is a new 4K restoration of this. So really neat, again, to see Nancy Savoca get this kind of treatment. Anyway, that'll do it for this round. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.